The whole Russia investigation, the Mueller investigation of Trump's potential connections with the Russians or the Russian government and potential action by that government to influence the 2016 election is sort of a funny thing. There's this split sort of between the left and liberals on how big of a deal this is, I guess, with the left both being that it's not a big deal and just sort of like more skeptical of the whole thing, whereas the liberals being much more like, oh my God, this is the biggest crisis ever. Um, and I think that the root of that, at least from my perspective, is that on the left, you know, almost everything that's bad about the Trump administration or about Donald Trump is contained within him being a pretty normal Republican president. He's going to put these monstrous figures like Kavanaugh and Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, who are the exact same people that Jeb Bush would have put on the Supreme Court. Do tax cuts for the rich, suppressing voters who are going to vote for the Democrats. Everything that's really worrying about the Trump administration is just like, well, he's still on the, evil capitalist side of things, as opposed to the Democrats who are the relatively nice capitalists side of things and the socialists who are the actually good side of things in that scheme. Um, and so for people like us, like socialists who are looking at it that way, the idea that on top of that, Trump is being manipulated by Putin or controlled by him or whatever Russian connections seems almost sort of trivial. What's the what does that do? Why do we care about that? And the reason to care is that, in this kind of geopolitical, the United States and Russia are in conflict, competing for influence in Eastern Europe and the Middle East type thing. It definitely is bad for the American side of that conflict to have our president be influenced by Russia. But I'm just not super invested in that conflict relative to the domestic conflict in the United States between the left and the right. To me, Putin is going to have more influence in the Baltic states or the Ukraine relative to the U.S. Oh, no. I guess we are a better influence on those countries than Russia. I mean, we're more pro, openness and democracy and liberalism and everything, and that's better. If it was Latvia or Estonia or whatever can go be more like Russia or more like the United States or more like Western Europe. Okay, be more like the United States or Western Europe. But the idea that it makes sense for the United States to be putting a lot of effort into making sure that that's the case or that Putin doesn't gain too much influence over those countries, it seems, it doesn't really do anything for me relative to the class war, and so this whole, oh, Trump is bad for that just doesn't hit. And indeed, some of the actions that seem most like the kind of things that Trump would do if this was what he was doing, if he's just like trying to destroy America on behalf of the Russians, as opposed to just like trying to destroy America on the behalf of corporate elites as usual. So things he would be doing based on that, screwing up the global trade order that the United States dominates, messing with American military alliances, threatening to withdraw from NATO, that kind of thing. That's the part of the Trump agenda that I'm the most ambivalent about. I'm not necessarily in favor of it because it's not as if he's doing any of this in furtherance of any goals that I appreciate. But he's doing it. What if Trump withdraws American troops from Germany? That would be great. I'm strongly in favor. I don't want any American troops in Europe. I got to say, I don't really want American troops outside of America's borders. Um, so that's not the worst. And he's doing it in like the most disruptive and anti-humanitarian way or whatever. But like, again, that's what normal Republicans are into, being anti-humanitarian, and disruption is the whole thing. And similarly on trade, I'm not an international trade economist. I'm not 100%, the authority on this. But protectionism's not crazy. If you're the United States and you have high paid workers, and they're in competition with low paid workers overseas, reducing that amount of competition between those workers definitely seems like it should raise the wages of American workers. And so again, I don't know if Trump cares about the wages of American workers. But that's not the worst. That's not anywhere near as bad as just like the negative consequences of standard Republican economic policy. Um, so, uh, so that's why the Russia stuff. I mean, the main thing that I get out of it is as an attack on Trump is what the Republicans like to claim that it is. That I'm like, oh yeah, I don't. Oh sure, Russian spying, infiltration, whatever. If this convinces more people to oppose Trump, if it gets these like George Will, Bill Kristol type establishment Republicans to write op-eds about how terrible Trump is rather than critical support for him, that's good. Like I'm in favor of that. So I'm just like I want to get rid of Trump for my own reasons, roughly equally to how I wanted to get rid of George W. Bush. And Trump's connections with Russians make the policies that he's making the same or better as they would be otherwise. And what else is there to say? I guess they're the same or better than they would be otherwise is not something to be loudly pitching at people, because it sort of hurts the the anti-Trump case to be saying nice things about those. But I don't know. I'm pretty confident that we're going to defeat Trump regardless. It's pretty great. Well, not great. Not great. It's good how personalized and just like a dumb, wannabe strongman he is. It's so much more worrisome, again, to have the standard Republican Party in front of you. Just this big, disciplined group that have, the incredibly powerful American business community largely behind them and want to subvert democracy in favor of their own economic interests. That's really dangerous and difficult to oppose. Trump going to be president for 2, 3 maximum nightmare scenario, like 5, 6 more years, and then he's going to be gone. He's not going to be president anymore. And where do his people go? I bet he'll keep tweeting. They'll keep being like, yeah, Trump. But like, what Republican politicians are they going to vote for? Nobody can really replicate the Trump method. The Trumpy Republicans that we're seeing popping up are more these like, just white supremacist types, which certainly captures part of the Trump appeal. That's definitely what a lot of his supporters liked about him, the appeal to white supremacy. But they don't have the billionaire who could self-fund if needed and who knows exactly how to manipulate the media, and just the fact that he's somehow able to convince people that he's like technocratically competent on the economy. I guess just because idiots are like, oh yeah, billionaires, they know what they're doing with this economic business stuff. Your average like, Corey Stewart, random like Trump Republican that we're talking about, just is not anywhere near as appealing of a figure outside of that hardcore of psychotic white nationalists that makes up the Republican Party base. Um, and so, yeah, I'm relatively optimistic that what we'll see is, Trump sort of withdraws, nothing really replaces him, and it's just sort of this, ongoing conflict between the psycho white nationalists and the corporatist side of the Republican Party. Um, and then that's just such an unappealing thing to people, oh, they're white nationalists, but they also love big business. And Trump, I think it's something about how he could like embody those both in one thing, maybe that made it work. But it just doesn't really seem very effective for anybody else. So we'll see. I'm hopeful that this is a rock bottom moment for the country, this whole Trump experience, and that we're gonna rise from the ashes, greater and more glorious than before. But we will see, I guess. All right, signing off. Peace be with you, America, and elsewhere. Even though I don't care about you elsewhere. No, I do. I love you so much. I'm sorry that I said I don't care about you. I'm an internationalist, I promise. I just am not confident that America can do good internationally until a lot of things change. And so that makes me sort of an isolationist and someone who wants to focus on national domestic policy. That's the TLDR of this video. All right, bye.